Cheers. That's funny. Cheers.
Oh, you mean mine? Go back and take verbatim. I can do that. Awesome. Oh.
4 o'clock, I'd like to call the Isabella County Board of Commissioners work session to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson. Commissioner Engler.
Here.
Commissioner Jazinski.
Here.
Commissioner Marino. Commissioner Swaney. Commissioner Horton. Commissioner Hope.
Here.
All present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Clerk Lux. Next up is approval of agenda. We will have general public comments, and then under presentations and special reports, a report on the fiscal year 2021 comprehensive annual financial report by Doug Peter of Reman Robson. And then we have no Isabella County Administrator. We do have an Isabella County Administrator Controller report. And then after that will be appointments to boards and commissions. We do have appointments to make to the Community Mental Health for Central Michigan Board, the Community Corrections Advisory Board, and the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works Workforce Development Board. After that will be committee reports, finance and administration.
Finance and administration is all set, Mr. Chairman.
The Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee, we have no business there tonight. Human Resources and Public Works.
Human Resources and Public Works is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And after that, Intergovernmental Affairs, Commissioner Marino, do we have any intergovernmental affairs this evening?
Yes, we do. We had a meeting last week.
Controller issues, which we have none. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have several 2% grant requests that we'll present. And then we'll have another opportunity for general public comment, and then announcements, and then adjournment. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Marino.
Support. Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have an agenda. And that brings us to general public comments, and we'll go first to the live audience. Anyone who wishes to make a comment, please step up to the podium. Write your name and address in the ledger there, if you would, please. Okay, and then state your first and last name.
Crowley. Juvenile Probation Officer, President of the Trial Court Union. I've worked for Isabella County since 1993. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I appreciate how hard this administration and board work to keep us employed and to be fairly compensated. Job is most often a thankless one, I'm sure. There are a lot of moving parts, and some of them don't always move the way we want them to. Public Act 152 of 2011 has apparently placed us all in a very uncomfortable position. You know this. Unfortunately, your employees are about to experience a financial hardship. Even though the trial court union, Board of Commissioners, and county administrator have an allegedly legally binding contract that assured us all otherwise. 36 court employees entered into that agreement with Isabella, which provided that in 2022, we would have the same health insurance benefits for the same cost as 2021. If there was an increase in cost, it would only come with enhanced benefits. Now it seems that this is not actually the case, as 35 of us are about to see an increased cost of approximately $20.10 per pay for 20 pays, for a total pre-tax loss of $410 per person in 2 particular categories of insurance. We fully believed in your intention to uphold that agreement, as you always have. The funding was approved as further evidence of your good faith. Now your lapse of action is resulting in what could be perceived as an $81,000 surplus in the healthcare budget because of state law. We have to pay that because of that mistake. We understand your obligations extend far beyond the court employees who have been working in our offices full-time without exception since June of 2020. While other county offices continue to this day to work remotely. We have had costs connected with coming in, which other workers have not. Even during the official complete closure, our staff were called in consistently, sometimes with little to no notice, because we believe public service is important and must, in our opinion, be of excellent quality in order to honor the public we serve. You have no choice but to place these costs of your inadvertent lapse of action on a select group of employees. We understand this. No one is pleased. We understand this as well. However, it is my most sincere hope that in the coming days, weeks, or months, as essentially the entire trial court union membership and others adjust their budgets to accommodate this unexpected financial burden, that you will find the time to research ways to fix the harm and make us whole. Our faith in you, your leadership, and your provenance needs a bit of restoration right now, as do our wallets. Please know that the trial court union is ready and willing to work with you to resolve this situation. Thank you for your time and consideration today. I hope this ends well for all of us.
This is going to be brief and to the point. I had like 2 seconds to work on it. We've been doing interviews all day, trying to get somebody in our office. So while I understand the situation and that it needs to be legally rectified, I feel that the current proposed solution to the opt-out omission is neither fair nor equitable to all employees. Why is there no additional fee assessed to the option C plan? And you may have a good reason for that, but it wasn't explained in the information that I received. Also, is there a way to give the affected people a $402 good faith and trust stipend to encourage them to stand by the current county leadership? The employees here are your biggest asset. They're the ones that provide the statutorily required services. A lot of these people have been here for years, which I understand we gave raises, but those raises were long overdue. A lot of those people were very faithful and stood by the county, even though they were working way under what their job was rated at. I hope that you can find a solution to keep their trust and credibility, because when someone calls my office, how that's handled reflects on you guys. Not that my employees would ever show that they were disgruntled, but obviously If we start bleeding employees because they don't feel that they can trust the county, we are looking at going into a financial situation in the next several years. We need to keep those people's trust. The other thing is that if your employees or your biggest asset can't trust you, how can your constituents reelect you if you're proving that you can't be trusted and that you won't honor anything that's fair and equitable? Thank you. Karen Jackson. I forgot to give you my address. 492 West Ride Avenue, Shepherd, Michigan.
Else?
Director for the Material Recovery Facility. Here on behalf of my employees, the insurance issue that's on the docket for tonight. One of the biggest things that I can say about it is from watching the Finance Committee meeting, there was indication that that they members of the Board of Commission would look to try and do what they could in the next fiscal year or before 23, as far as making sure the resolution was adopted, correcting the issue so that we wouldn't have this again. But there was also mention in that meeting of something that they would look at everything that they could do as members of the board to be able to help offset some of this possibly from going into next year for them employees. I guess one of the questions that I would have on it is that if you're considering doing something of that nature, are you going to exclude them 10 people that is in Plan C? I only feel that would be fair is it if that was something that was looked at. If you're going to exclude them from this dollar figure, then they should be excluded. Them 10 people should be excluded in any benefit if there is anything moving into 23 as far as January 1st. Thank you.
Else?
Good afternoon. My name is Chad Geddes. I'm an Isabella County employee for just about 19 years. And I'm the president of the Isabella County Central Dispatch Supervisors Union. We understand that there's been a fortunate circumstance that has come up regarding the county employees having to pay extra money for healthcare coverage for the calendar year of 2022. It's our stance in our bargaining unit that we stand behind the decisions of this board and the administrator controller. We stand behind them. But we need to make sure that in the future, we can have discussions about how we can rectify this unfortunate circumstance. That's all I got. Thank you.
Else?
I too want to talk about the employee cost difference for the health insurance. At the open enrollment for our Blue Cross insurance options, we were told that there would be no increase of cost for the employee. This was exciting news, as if we would actually see a bump in our pay from our COLA. Good news. Upon reading the email that a mistake had been made and the employee cost share for our insurance would need to be adjusted upwards to cover our health benefit was, to say in the least, a bit shocking. The board's option, according to the email sent out, would be to harm the employees by passing the mistake on to the employees. The current inflation is at 7.5%, highest it's been since '82. With our COLA only being 2.5%, it doesn't help or begin to cover costs we're currently facing. I believe the mistake should be corrected in a manner that does not impact the employees negatively in any way. Implementing an additional payroll deduction will be detrimental to over 200 employees. Best option is inaction. Do nothing, leave everything as it is, and no one's wrong. The events surrounding the mistake, COVID, employment changes in the admin office are explainable reasons why a deadline was missed. The board needs to protect the employees by putting in record the intent to opt out, explaining the error. The funds would have already had to have been allocated for the 2022 budget to cover the cost. If the intent of the county board had been to opt out of the PA 152, this has to be why we were told that no cost increase would be coming to our insurance options. How has the gap been paid through March? What will the payroll deduction be covering? An amount missed back through January or the remainder of 2022? We are all in our first quarter, and the status on noncompliance is simply a fact, nothing more. Placing the cost of this mistake on the employees is creating an additional mistake, not correcting the mistake. What employees have been able to count on is our great health care at a cost we can all afford. That is what I've been bragging about since I've worked for the county. The board should be asking the employees how we want to correct the mistake, not telling us how will be used as a scapegoat for literally a mistake of missing a deadline. We cannot be the first entity to have had this happen, and we probably won't be the last. So let's not set a precedent of reaction which will hurt the employees who bring in every dollar of this budget that the board is utilizing. The action of additional payroll deduction will literally cause harm to the staff from the least paid to the highest paid, who have budgeted their income with the information provided by the county back in November of 2021. Please explain in detail how non-union and union employees will be impacted. If moving forward, the employees are tasked with the damage of a payroll deduction, how will the employees be reimbursed or compensated? Concerning the future, has there been a fail-safe measure put in place so the deadline is not missed again? Thank you for all you do for the county. This is an unfortunate situation. It is a mistake, simple as that. Do not compound it. I thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns, express the distress an additional payroll deduction would cause. Thank you.
What else? General public comment. I understand we do have a couple of hands raised. No? Nobody on the virtual side. Huh? Yes, if anyone calling in would like to speak, press *9, correct? Still nothing? Okay, we'll move past general public comment, and there will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting for general public comment. At that time. And for now, we will move on to presentations and special reports. You have the fiscal year 2021 comprehensive annual financial report and the supplementary information to financial statements, federal awards. Doug Teeter, CPA, principal with Riemann, and I believe Administrator Controller Frost.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did just want to make a few comments before Doug Dieter, CPA principal with Raymond, makes a presentation on the fiscal year 21 audit to you. Fiscal year 21 was actually a fantastic year. Financially, it positions us better for what we know we will face financially over the next few years. So in the interest of moving forward into the next few years, I wanted to draw attention to the financial management issues raised by Commissioner Jałosinski, as the issues did not rise to the level that they would be reported in the audit document. I felt it was important to mention it. Rather, the issues were discussed, as I understand it, among Commissioner Jałosinski, Treasurer Pickens, and Mr. Dieter. It's my understanding that the root cause for these concerns was determined to be lack of communication between the board and administration. I will not do the same as has happened in the past. I will not further that. Take budget amendments, for example, right? We've talked about budget amendments, and I've stated that these will be brought to the board for consideration timely, right? When you're making those decisions that impact the budget. An example is in your packet tonight, an issue from Parks and Rec that was brought to committees. We said, wait a minute, that's going to affect the budget. Please bring a budget amendment when this goes forward to the board. So I would encourage not just Commissioner Jałosinski, but all of you to be watch guards for this type of thing in the future. It's your right to request a budget amendment be done, so you know where funds are coming from to carry out your decisions, right? I won't belabor this. I just wanted to relay to you my commitment to improve. So speaking of commitments, one area in particular I want you to pay attention to in Mr. Dieter's report is the fund balance and fund balance designations in particular. And I would remind the board that you have the authority to commit fund balance. Administrator controller has the authority to assign fund balance. Once this board commits fund balance, only the board can undo that. The administrator controller cannot undo that. You've recently been presented a 3-year forecast that utilizes fund balance in future years to balance the general fund budget, right? So you have the authority to commit fund balance for that purpose if you so choose. I just wanted to remind you of that. It can be a nice roadmap for how those monies will be spent in the future. Just think of that. And with that, I would welcome Doug Dieter, CPA. Michelle, can you turn his video on?
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Doug Dieter with Raymond. We did do the financial statement audit and the single audit for the county for fiscal year end September 30, 2021. We received 3 documents this afternoon. These will be the same documents that I believe were emailed in format to you last week. First one, the thickest one, is the annual comprehensive financial reports. This is actual financial statement audit. The other bound document, the thin one, is called single audit compliance. This has to do with the federal awards that the county received and expended during the year. And we do some compliance testing in accordance with the federal regulations on that. And then the last document is just a stapled document. And this is just some required communications for our auditing standards that are required to be communicated to you as the board. There's a few different items in there. There's a couple different sections that we'll touch on each of those as I go through the presentation. So I'll start off presentation. We did issue the county's financial report. I'll start off with what is an audit? You know, what are the responsibilities for an audit from a management side as well as the independent auditor side? And, you know, there has to be direct work together between those two groups in order to have a financial statement audit done. Management has to be available, has to provide the documentation, and we audit what's provided to us to supporting documentation. So there's 3 bullet points. The first one, management's responsible to prepare the financial statements. They're responsible to make sure they're fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Now, as part of the audit process, us as independent auditors do help the county put together these reports, but ultimately the responsibility does fall to the county for those reports. The next item is to design, implement, and maintain internal controls. So this is the checks and balances throughout the county, how the money is received in, how it's paid out, and that type of thing. And the last item here is just to make sure all financial records and related information is made available to the auditors, and to make sure that information is reliable and properly recorded. Now, if we look at what the independent auditor's responsibilities are, our responsibility is to issue opinions on these documents, whether they're fairly presented. So if you remember, management represents they're fairly presented, we're going to audit that to make sure we agree and that they've met all the applicable standards. We plan and perform our audit to obtain what's called reasonable assurance. So we don't audit every single transaction that goes through the county during the year. We sample, we make selections, we test certain things. We do it all based on a risk assessment process. So we can't say 100% accurate, but we can say they're fairly presented in all material respects. So in other words, they're reasonably presented. And then the last item is what we're doing here today is communicate any significant matters related to the audit that came to our attention during the audit. So we did issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the same opinion that the county's received over the years. It's basically a clean opinion. Means the financial statements are fairly presented, as I had mentioned. There are several components to the city that we do not audit: the Road Commission, Transportation Commission, and the Medical Care Facility. Those are audited by other auditing firms, but because they are component units and related to the county, they get incorporated in the county's report. And therefore, our opinion on those parts of your report are based on the other auditors' reports. So we didn't audit them. We reviewed the audit reports and incorporated their information. If you look in the top right of the slides, you can see that there is a page number. If you want some more information in the audit report of where you can find this stuff, there is page numbers there to give you more detailed information. We're going to start off looking at the general fund balance sheet. This is all the assets and liabilities for the county as of September 30, 2021. You can see the first section, the assets total of $19.2 million. Most of that is in cash and investments of 15.8. And the largest, about an $8 million increase year over year. That has a lot to do with the ARPA funding that came in. It hasn't been spent yet. Liability section, about $6.9 million in liabilities. The first couple are normal reoccurring types of transactions. So the accounts payable are the general trade payables that the county received product or service before year end and wasn't paid till after year end. So it's liability to the county. Accrued payroll has to do with the time your employees worked and that wasn't paid until October. Due to other funds, there's occasionally loaning back and forth between funds. So the general fund did owe other funds the $103,000. Then I want to draw your attention to the unearned revenue of $6 million. It's something new this year. It has to do with the ARPA funding. This is the unspent portion. So the county can only recognize this revenue as they spend it. So it will sit as what's called unearned revenue until it's spent by the county. Deferred inflows, $700,000. What that is, it has to do with some longer term receivables. The general fund operates on what's called modified accrual basis. It only recognizes current assets. So some longer term receivables that aren't due within 60, 90 days after year end are offset with deferred inflows, and those will get recognized in the next fiscal year. The difference between those three categories is the fund balance. This is basically what's left over at the end of the year, the equity, if you will, if you're a for-profit entity. So this is fund balance is 11.6 million as of year end. Split into three different categories. We have non-spendable of 268,000. So this has to do with If you look at the top, the asset section, the advances to the component unit and the other assets. So these are, the money's already out the door. It's not available for new spending. So it's just kind of segregates that portion of the fund balance, say it's not available for future spending at this point in time. Assigned fund balance of 5.6 million. This is what Nicole was talking about earlier, where the management can assign funds for certain dollar amounts. The majority of what makes this up is there's 2.6 million assigned in the general fund to repay the bond anticipation note for the jail project that has been set aside, as well as about $2 million in working capital just to ensure that fund balance stays healthy to keep the county operating. The remaining amount is the unassigned of 5.3 million. That's what's left over again after you take those other two categories out and is available for future spending. Just keep in mind that assignment can be assigned, it can be unassigned, it can be changed. It's not a real strong, hard and fast rule. It's really, it's up to management or the board to make that decision of whether that assignment stays or goes. So you can consider that when you're looking at the budget process going forward. Next, I want to look at the general fund revenues. We'll compare it budget to actual. There's a pie chart there to kind of give you a pictorial view of where the revenues came from. As you'd expect, the largest portion of the revenues is from taxes, about 13.6 million. This is the property taxes. That did go up about $1 million year over year. It has a lot to do with the change in the taxable value on the properties. And then the other one that changed significantly year over year is the transfers in. So this is money coming from other funds to help support the general fund. And during the year, there was a $1 million transfer into the general fund that came from the jail construction project to reimburse the general fund for costs that it incurred before the bond anticipation notes were issued. So looking at that, the final budgeted amount for revenues is 23.5 million. Actuals come in about 23.7. So only about a $200,000 difference in revenue. So pretty good job budgeting the revenue side of things. Next, look at the general fund expenditures, same type of information, budget actual, broken down by the functions. And again, here, public safety, every county, almost every county, that's the largest portion of where your funds go, about $7.6 million, followed by judicial at 5.5 and the general government at 5 million. This one, final budget amount for expenditures was 22.4 million compared to actual of 21 million under budget spended. So again, positive budget variance, and that's budgeting conservatively and watching costs as you go throughout the year to ensure that you're within budget amounts. So if we take those two items, the revenues and the expenses, the difference is the change in fund balance. On the slide, you can see the final budget had estimated the final for the change in fund balance to increase $1,053,000. Fund balance actually increased about 2.6 million. So variance of 1.6, which is a combination of the under budget for expenditures and the over budget for revenues. So you can see there at the end of the year, fund balance was 11.6 million I mentioned earlier. One criteria to look at when you're looking at the health of a general fund is how much fund balance is available for next year's expenditures. So we take total fund balance as a percent of 1 year's expenditures and transfers out. In your case, it's about 55% this year. Had a good year with increasing the fund balance. Now, if we looked at that's total fund balance, you looked at just the unassigned portion, so the amount that hasn't already been set aside for another purpose, you're about 26% of 1 year's expenditures in fund balance at year end. So talking about fund balance, just give you a 5-year trend here of what the fund balances look like over the years. 2021, you took a nice jump in fund balance from 8.9 million in 2020 to 11.6 in 2021. You can see what the historical trend was there for the last 5 years. The MERS defined benefit pension plan, the county participates, as do most other municipalities in Michigan, in the MERS pension plan. This is a plan that is administered by the state organization for the entire state. And your portion is allocated to you based on the actuarial valuation that is performed each year by the actuary hired by MERS. So the actuary will go through the calculation, look at the various assumptions to create what's called the total pension liability. This is the total amount that's expected to cost the county over the life of the plan. The life of the plan would be, until everybody is done with the plan. I hate mortality, but till everybody dies, it's in the plan. But so it projects it out for many, many, many years. Okay, so this is not a current liability. It's something that will be funded over the years through your contributions to the plan. So it does look like some huge numbers, but again, nothing that's going to be currently due. So for 2021, the total pension liability is calculated by the actuary, went up about $4 million. It's at 55.69 million. The plan net position, so this is the excess contributions that the county has put into the plan over the years that have not gone out for benefit payments yet. MERS takes this amount and invests it with all their other investments in the plan. So the net position for 2021 was $40.2 million. So again, that's the investment set aside to fund this liability. So the difference between the total pension liability and the plan net position is what's called the net pension liability. This is the future obligation to the county. The net pension liability is a 15.5 million. It's the unfunded portion of the plan. Again, this is going to be paid in future years as you make the required contributions into the plan. Now, MERS has made some significant actuarial assumption changes over the years that has created an increase in your total pension liabilities. You can see there over the years, it continues to go up and up and up. MERS is expected to continue making some more of these. So I would expect that total pension liability would increase in the future years as well. So some of the significant ones they've made, they've changed the discount rate, which is the expected future returns on the investments. It was at 8% a few years ago. Now they brought it down to 7.35%. So pretty significant change. They've changed some of the mortality rates, retirement rates, that type of thing. So they're making a lot of tweaks to the plan. They're trying to make it more in line with some industry standards. As I mentioned, the pension contributions, as long as the county continues to make the required annual contribution, the plan is, the plan will have the funding available when necessary to pay the benefits. This again is one of the calculations done by MERS actuary. They do it for each participant in the MERS plan, each entity that participates. And they go through the calculation, figure out what is the required contribution to make sure funds are there. And as you can see there, the bar chart on the screen, the county has made those required contributions over the years as expected, and they continue to fund this plan appropriately. Next, I want to talk about the single audit. This is the federal awards for the county. Whenever an entity expends more than $750,000 in federal awards, federal government requires a compliance audit to be done. And that's what we did again this year for the county. They expended $1.8 million in federal awards. Similar to last year, this year you had some ARPA spending. Last year you had the coronavirus relief fund spending. So each year is about 1.3 million, 1.4 million around there, more than historically what the county has spent because of these pandemic funding that the federal government has put out. So we identified based on federal requirements, which programs we need to audit each year. This year, we audited the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, or better known as ARPA. And again, we audit the compliance. So the federal government said you can spend these funds on these certain types of expenditures, and we go through and make sure the county has complied with that. And we did issue, again, an unmodified opinion, same as the financial statement audit, except this is on compliance. We didn't find any compliance related issues on the expenditure of these funds over the year. Couple comments and recommendations we had. One of them is the Lake Isabella water supply. So, my understanding that because of COVID, there was some delay here, but these are generally billed on a quarterly basis. They did not get billed since October 2020. The amounts got accrued in your audit report, so they're there, but the entities have not paid them because they haven't been billed yet. So it's just a reminder to make sure that, we stay up on that. We find a way to make sure that those billings go out so that the funds are coming into the county. Bank accounts, the state, Michigan's treasury requires that the county treasurer has authority over all bank accounts. There is one bank account, and this is similar, we've talked about over the years, the district court, that the treasurer is not a signer on. We just suggest, recommend that the treasurer has authority over all the bank accounts because that is his statutory responsibility to ensure all the cash is reconciled and accounted for. And then this year we did have a finding for audit adjustments. This is one where we had an issue last year. It didn't rise to a finding, but then the issue wasn't corrected. We had a similar issue this year, so it rose to the level of a finding. And so the county needs to identify when capital assets are being purchased or constructed and make sure those capital assets are recorded. The expense got recorded, but the actual capital asset did not. So that's a two-part portion. And it had to do with the 911 as well as some stuff in the drains project. So we recommend that the county put into place some sort of process, procedure, either on a monthly, quarterly, or could be an annual basis if that's what you choose, to identify and track these things so that they're appropriately reported. That's all I had to cover. If there's anything specific anybody would like to ask about in the audit report or the presentation. No.
Commissioner Jelezinski.
I have a question and a statement to make. Nicole had mentioned that nothing in the 8-page report that I provided to Treasury and shared with you, and I shared it with all the commissioners around the table here, rose to a level that merited mentioning in the report. Is that because it didn't have a material, it wasn't a material defect? And what was the reason for not finding those issues?
Each one has a slightly different component, but I know one of them that was brought up by you and the treasurer was the budget amendment for the jail project. The $1 million expenditure that the budget was not amended till subsequent in the year end, or subsequent to the expenditure, but before the fiscal year end of the county. That's a very common practice. And from an external financial audit perspective, from our perspective, the state provides us guidelines of how we are to report that in our audit report. And their guidelines are at year end, were there any budget violations? And that's what the state treasury has asked us to report on. So there were no budget violations related to that transaction because the budget was amended before year end. The other part that went into that is the county board itself approved the contracts, approved the expenditures. So the budget amendment was more of an administrative function that should have happened and got missed and got picked up subsequent to the event. So if the county board hadn't approved the contract, hadn't approved the expenditure to be paid, then that might have rose to a level that would have caused something to be seen in the audit report. But since the county was aware of it, they knew what it was, they approved it. From an external compliance perspective, I didn't feel that it met the requirements to be mentioned.
Okay, I'd like just to make a statement. I've been dealing with this issue for over a year, and anybody that really knows me knows I'm an introvert. However, I am an overachiever, and when you have those two qualities, you deal with a lot of stress. And I literally put in hundreds of hours. This is just one of my files on things that I observed that ran counter to what I've learned as a public official over many, many years. And also from what I learned in reading the Michigan Uniform Budget and Accounting Act. It just seemed clear to me that there were violations, and those violations don't have to end up. In this case, there were no, everything seemed to come out in the end. However, we did have losses by it in terms of our relationship with other elected officials and county department heads. And I guess I'll read my statement. I do want to tell Nicole, I appreciate your comments, and I do look forward to, and I do make reference in here that I see there's a welcome change in leadership. So my statement, and it's 3 pages, but it's large print. My eyesight's getting worse as I get older. It's been nearly a year since I began sharing my concerns with fellow commissioners regarding former County Administrator Margaret McAvoy's apparent disregard for complying with the Michigan Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act and generally accepted financial controls. At first, my comments were shared in private with members of the board and county administration. I had hoped that the board would at least consider what I had to say. While 2 board members voiced a shared concern with the financial matters identified, there never was a majority on the board willing to consider anything beyond the status quo. Administrator McAvoy had the firm support of the majority of the board in financial management matters. One member, who will remain unidentified, however, did respond to me with the following. I would be remiss in not mentioning my disdain for your veiled threats about media involvement in what appears to be a self-appointed watchdog role you feel you need to have regarding financial matters concerning the county. From the demanding statements you make in meetings and emails, and now with possible FOIA requests, it makes me concerned that this board administration will get bogged down answering, solving your requests, and not have the time to address issues like jail, budget, personnel, etc. That statement strongly implies that individual members of the board have a limited role to play in the financial health and well-being of the county. Further, anyone who would dare ask questions did so at the risk of harming other important county objectives and projects. Is the role of a county commissioner simply to get along, not to make waves and rubber stamp decisions made by county administration and board leadership? I don't think so. When I found no internal willingness to address the financial issues, actions I found troubling, I reached out to the Department of Treasury with my concerns. The department viewed my 8-page report as a hot button issue that was best resolved locally. The department did say it would review the 2021 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is the document before us tonight, and would consider any finding noted in the report. Well, the report prepared by the auditing firm of Raymond Robinson declined to express an opinion based on compliance or internal controls. The report specifically says, and I took this out of the single audit, so that was an error, but I think similar language in the general audit. And you provided additional information that I didn't have tonight. But the report said, the purposes of this report is solely to describe the scope of our testing and internal control and compliance and the results of that testing, and not to provide an opinion on the effectiveness of the county's internal control or on compliance. Apparently, the report does not consider potential violations of the Michigan Uniform Budgeting Accounting Act. With the 2021 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report remaining silent on compliance issues, the Department of Treasury is unlikely to examine possible violations of the Act by Isabella County. However, Raymond Robinson is comfortable recommending Isabella County for a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the Government Finance Officers Association. So what have I learned in the past year while advocating for a more compliant and transparent financial management process by county administration? The following. Number one, Department of Treasury's Michigan Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act apparently is not the all-defining document guiding financial matters of local government. It is open to liberal interpretation. The Act does include enforcement procedures and penalties for violations. However, such actions are unlikely unless a serious material defect occurs as a result of noncompliance. I'm of the opinion that not following established and commonly accepted rules makes it more probable that a serious violation is more likely to occur in the future. Number two, last spring, I found it personally embarrassing to learn via email that the county lacks sufficient financial resources to cover payroll and other county bills. After months of internal financial transfers, only another transfer by county administration saved the county from considerable public embarrassment. All the undisclosed financial transfers over many months, some I believe questionable, need not have occurred if county administration had simply informed the board of the financial challenges faced by the county. We could have worked together as a team to resolve those issues without all the negative outcomes that came with being silent. This was not Administrator McAvoy's way. And I am going to share something else because after I did the report, something new came to light. I'm just going to share it, saying, here's another incident of something that was done without information to the board, reporting to the board. Board of Commissioners is responsible individually and as an elected body to oversee the financial matters of the county. It is a disservice to county residents when we unquestionably relegate board duties and responsibilities to county administration. The best outcomes will always come from an engaged board working hand in hand with county administrators, elected officials, department heads, countywide staff, and our residents in the decision-making process. On a side note, it is essential that the board and administration act positively to address the damage done to relationships within county government resulting from some of these actions. Finally, number 4, as I've recently commented more than once, Isabella County has new leadership on the board and county administration. I sense a new openness to resolve old issues and work as a team for the betterment of county residents. Board Chair Hope and County Administrator Frost are working to create a more inclusive and transparent form of governance. I applaud their efforts. I do want to just share
Okay.
you know, I know we've heard that it's okay, we pool our resources and we draw what we need to pay our bills and the like. And those are internal revenues that are transferred in and out. I think it's called due to, due from. And apparently that's okay. But here's a piece of correspondence dated June 2nd from Margaret McAvoy to the MMRMA, in which Margaret is asking for a return of $100,000 paid to the MMRMA's trying to think what they call the fund. Oh, the retention fund. Now, as you recall, we generally see billings, I don't know if it's quarterly, that makes a payment to our for our premium, and then another one for the retention fund. And the retention fund's objective is to have monies on hand to cover expenses that Isabella County is going to be responsible for in a lawsuit. Even if we win the lawsuit, I think we have a $75,000 obligation as a deductible. And so to me, I found that embarrassing. I never, as a county board commissioner, I never heard anything from Margaret coming to us, asking us to go out to an outside entity, asking for money back. And I know, Nicole, you set the, on the backside, you'll see the email from Nicole. And I have to believe Nicole was following Margaret's instructions, asking to have those dollars put back in the MMRMA. I don't know. I just think there's probably other surprises. And I look forward to working with the board and Nicole to have, again, a more transparent and process as we move forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions for Mr. Dieter? Yes, there are none, sir. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to appointments to boards and commissions. I'm sorry. Yep, go ahead. Yep, I'm sorry.
It's all
I'm
right.
sorry, I skipped right over it. Administrative Controller Frost.
I will try to be brief though, and I will try. Thank you very much, Doug. And I also want to thank, of course, administration team who has been working very, very hard, as you can imagine, putting together the documents necessary for the audit, and reviewing the audit and updating the audit and reviewing it again and updating it again. Certainly Accountant Chris Whitmer, who is here tonight, Contracted Director of Financial Services, Steve Krinovic, thank you. And the woman who touches it the most, certainly Accountant Melissa Franquist. Thank you. Thank you very much. I do want to speak to the couple of issues that remained on the screen for all of us to see through all that. Lake Isabella water supply, Drain Commission is very much on board with getting those billed out and already has started an aggressive process to get up to date in that regard. So I think we have a good plan for success going forward there. As far as the construction in progress, Melissa and I have developed a corrective action plan, part of the audit documents now. And not only, someone mentioned a monthly or an annual process, there's a monthly and 2 annual processes in place now to make sure that we capture the construction in progress. So if you have any questions on that, certainly I would entertain those at any point. I want to talk to you, I want to report out that the ARPA committee or work group recently reconvened in March. One of the first things they wanted to do in terms of making a recommendation to you about what should our ARP dollars be spent on, they wanted to hear from our departments, from our elected officials, from our offices. What are your needs? Those were turned in March 3rd. Some of the folks came to present to that work group. And I have just received all of those project request forms and we'll be getting those out to the committee so that they can rank those and come up with a recommendation to the board about what should potentially be funded. Out of that work group came a suggestion. Remember when we were applying for ARPA funds and the process was new and confusing and especially for some of our smaller townships? Well, now we're to the point where we have to do reporting. And so now that process is new and confusing. So Monday, March 21st, this room, 4 o'clock, we are putting on a training, if you will, for the non-entitlement units in the county. So those local units of government who need to report on ARPA funds. Accountant Chris Whitmer is going to lead us through the website for reporting and help to have a success in that regards for our local units of government. One thing we talked about briefly at finance was where our fuel costs in our budgets. We have done an analysis of where we're at fuel wise. Most of the fuel, gas and oil, if you will, line items in the county are running at 50% right now or just a little above, but I'm sure we do expect to see some budget amendments in that regard going forward in the fiscal year if the gas prices maintain where they are. Roof HVAC bids were due proposals were due to us February 28th. And we did receive 2 proposals. They were quite over what was budgeted for those projects. And at this point, being that the roof project is critical and should not be put off, I have reached back out to both of the companies who gave us proposals to say, can you please pull out your all-in costs for the roof? And if we are going to go ahead with the HVAC project at this point, it's probably going to take ARPA dollars to do that. So I think we just need to consider that in the mix with the other projects. But I wanted to let you know where that was at. In terms of the Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility project that went out for bid last Friday on the 11th. Bids are due on April 1st for that project. So we'll be meeting with the construction manager shortly after that to find out where the bids came in. Things are progressing at USDA and our loan request is in DC waiting approval. Recently, I did want to mention that I met with some folks from the community, Amanda Schaefer from the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation and Chris Rowley from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I want to say how lucky our community is to have these fine, professional and passionate young women working for us in our community. I've enjoyed recently getting to know the new city manager, Aaron DeSense, and Mark Stuhldreyer from Union Township. Recently, I'm sure Commissioner Marino will speak to, we had a intergovernmental liaison meeting last week. And Union Township Manager Mark Stuhldreher, who has an extensive career in public service and has been around a bit, noted how he has never seen such a collaborative spirit in any community he's worked in. And so that was really, really nice to hear. So in that collaborative spirit, something that our former administrator controller was working on, the HATS organization has actually offered to split the costs of the animal shelter parking lot repairs with us. So I'll actually be bringing that offer forward to you in the next round of meetings for your consideration. Most recently, I've been in conversations with an elected official about morale of employees and what could we do? Could the fund committee organize something to help? And then, of course, we have the PA 152 issue surface, right? And so certainly that discourse that was there is maybe magnified and continues. So we know, I believe there's little relief in right now reminding employees of the wage study implementation, the 2.5% increase, the excellent health benefits we have. Those points fall moot right now, I think, because right now this is being done to them, right? So it's forefront in their minds. So PA 152, the law, I want everyone to understand, states that the board cannot circumvent the act and cover this cost for employees. Can't make that point enough. Cost didn't increase. Nothing was under budgeted. The law says the board shall do this. But I want to tell everybody here, and I do thank you all so much for coming. I want to tell you something about these 7 men, your board. I have served as your administrator controller for about 2.5 months. And in that time, I've witnessed very respectful, very open and frank discussion among this board. And I've always seen integrity in your decisions. I want to assure everybody that the board has intentions to make this right. I just wanted you to know, in terms of morale, in terms of this discourse, it is the will of this board to turn that tide. That is all I have, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Frost. My apologies for skipping over you. I get a little ahead of myself sometimes, but I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
So we'll move on now to appointments to boards and commissions. We have item A, consider appointing 1 member to the Community Mental Health for Central Michigan Board for a 3-year term ending March 31st, 2025, or until a successor is appointed. And that applicant is James Hatton. I sit on that board. I've worked with James Hatton for 5 years. He's been on that board for 12 years, a very dedicated member of that committee, very knowledgeable. Used to run the Michigan industry. Very dedicated to mental health treatment for that agency. I don't know if any other commissioners know Jim or want to say anything before we move on to the next one. The next one, item B, would be consider appointing 1 member to the Community Corrections Advisory Board as a criminal defense attorney, local public defender representative, or until a successor is appointed. Roberta Sacharski. I don't know if anyone knows Roberta. Would like to say anything?
Public defenders.
She's one of our public defenders, and I was impressed. Her references included Judge Kavanaugh and Tom Hausman, who runs our public defender office. Item C then is consider appointing Toby Roth to serve on the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works Workforce Development Board as a private sector representative with a term date ending June 30th, 2023. Is there anyone that would like to speak to that appointment? Toby Roth, I don't know him personally, but I know he has worked for CMU for a number of years and was nominated by Jim McBride, former state rep and CEO of the Michigan Corporation. We'll have both appointments on tonight's meeting. And that brings us down to committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have to consider ratifying and placing on file the February 25th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $411,334.91. The March 4th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $1,634,707.90. And the adjustment list dated March 10th, 2022. We received these invoices by email. We also had a discussion with them about them in committee. None of the committee members had any outstanding issues with anything. Couple big ticket items, as I like to call them, on the February 25th. There was a judgment for attorney's fees, but that's nothing. That is not as it would appear. That is something to do with, it was for $201,000. So when you see something like that, that just jumps right out at you, but I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, that was something to do with Bandit Industries, and it was probably a large settlement issue or something like that, or attorney's fees coming back. So again, that's not something out of the ordinary, but something out of the ordinary. But other than that, any commissioners have any questions or issues on the February 25th invoice list? We'll move to the March 4th invoice list. Again, we have some large expenditures. Those were from the treasurer for the 5th tax distribution. The largest being, again, to the Gratiot Isabella Intermediate School District. And commissioners have any issue with the March 4th invoice? Okay, then we will move on to the adjustment list dated March 10th. Again, we have numerous Gordon Foods, because that is, we get a discount for early payment. And then also because we avoid a late fee, there are some invoice adjustments with the city of Mount Pleasant. Nothing really out of the ordinary. There's an order entry error, but that can happen. That's why you overlook these. That's why you look at these things twice. So commissioners have any issues on the adjustment list? Commissioner Jazinski.
Just to comment on the tax settlement. These are the local units of government that the delinquent tax revolving fund makes payment to the local units for individuals that have not yet paid their taxes. So March payments.
Any further discussion? Okay, with that, everything will move forward to this evening.
Second item is consider approving the municipal employees retirement system, MERS 457 participation agreement to permit loans and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This is in our 457 program. Loans are acceptable in those other vendors that provide that service to county employees. And it just makes sense to provide the same for people that decide to enroll in MERS. I think there's $150 fee to enroll for a loan. And there are some interest payments, but I think I've heard that the interest payments get removed or reimbursed once the loan is liquidated and things are paid off. Nicole? You can
Yes,
help me.
actually, the way it works is the interest, the employee who borrows the money from their own 457 actually makes the interest payments back into their own 457 account. So really, they're out is that $150.
It goes from one pocket into the other? Okay.
That is correct.
So there's no cost to the county board or to county government. It's all at the discretion, voluntary discretion of the employee that would wish to do it. So are there any questions? We'll move this into the meeting tonight.
Okay, next up, consider adopting Isabella County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-01 to demonstrate compliance with the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act of 2011, or otherwise known as PA 152, and adopt the hard cap annual cost limitations for the medical benefit plan coverage year January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This resolution comes in regards to the matters that was brought up in public comment that we had a closed session last week, our last board meeting, that was discussed in Finance and Administration Committee. Basically what this is this board did not opt out of PA 152 last year. So because there is no provision to allow us to opt out now, once you did not opt out, you are held to several different choices, one of them being what we've chosen here is the hard cap, which means we cannot spend, this board cannot spend over a certain dollar amount. It is capped. And as we will see in item number 4, I'm not going to jump into that right now. We're going to have a discussion on that if that's what the board wants to do as far as item number 4. Well, I'm not going to speak for this board. I can tell you that this board echoes what Administrator Controller Nicole Frost said earlier, was that this board does not want to harm the employees by any way, shape, and or form. It is not our intention. This is not done for budgetary restraints. We budgeted the money. We fully intended to pay for everything. This is just a very unfortunate error that was done. Somebody may look at the amount of pre-tax dollars and say that's not significant. I disagree with that. That is a significant, anytime $400 is a lot of money to people. I get that. And this board certainly, again, was not intending to do anything like that. So not speaking for the board, speaking for myself, but I think the board will probably agree that this board will work to hopefully to do something maybe to rectify that, but we can't do anything this year because, as Administrator Controller Frost stated, you can't you have to do this. You can't, I'm drawing a blank here on the word. Circumvent, thank you. You can't circumvent it by doing that. No, if we can get creative, people work together, who knows? I mean, I think this board is open to that. But right now, this item 4, when we get to it, is the discussion that we're going to have this evening on rectifying it. So this, as to the resolution, does it have to be read tonight, right now? Yeah, I hope not, but we weren't happy to read it.
Generally, we do read a resolution when it's approved, so.
Okay. Well, this is for discussion, but we do have a resolution. This board has made a resolution, and I will read it now. Isabella County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-01. A resolution to demonstrate compliance with the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act of 2011, MCL 15.561 to 15.569, PA 152. Whereas Public Act 152 of 2011 is last amended by Public Act 477 of 2018, serves to limit a public employer's annual contribution for employee medical benefit plans. And whereas the act contains 3 options for compliance, which include implementing the hard cap annual cost limitations as established by the state treasurer, adopting an 80-20 cost share of premiums whereby the county pays 80% and the employee pays 20% of the premiums, and opting out of the act by a 2/3 vote of the governing body prior to the start of the benefit year. And whereas, although Isabella County has opted out of PA 152 annually since the enactment of the act, the county inadvertently did not act to exempt itself prior to the start of the 2022 medical benefit year as required by the act. And whereas, as a result of not opting out or adopting the 80-20 cost share option, the county will be subject to the hard cap annual cost limitations and employee cost shares for 2022 medical health coverage premiums must be adjusted for the county to be in compliance with PA 152. And whereas the failure to affirmatively act pursuant to PA 152 for the health plan year 2022 was inadvertent and unintentional, and the county commissioners are displeased and did not intend for county employees to absorb additional health insurance premium cost sharing during 2022, the county will nevertheless comply with the legal requirements of PA 152. Now, therefore, be it resolved, effective March 15th, 2022, the Board of Commissioners of Isabella County elects to comply with the requirements of Public Act 152 by implementing the hard cap annual cost limitations for the medical benefit plan coverage year, January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. And it will be signed by Tobin D. Hope, Chairperson, and Mindy B. Lux, Clerk. I would like to add also too, which I did not mention, is, again, not without revealing what went on in some discussions. It is my opinion, and I think it's an opinion of the board, is that we could not ignore this. We had to be in compliance. It's just such whether we could or not can be debated, but you do not want to be in compliance. You have to follow the law and regulations. And to do otherwise is leaving the board subject to not only liability, but won't be, it's not a sign of professionalism. And this board deserves respect because this board always does the right thing. And doing something like that would not be the correct or right thing to do. So that's what I wanted to add on that. Other commissioners have anything on this?
Mine here. Yeah, and also we realize that it needs to be done speedily, the longer it goes on. So we're not going to be sticking this in committee forever and studying it forever and waiting to the end. So we're going to be working expediently to get this done and come up with a solution to it. So I just wanted to bring that up. We do understand the longer it goes on, the more hardship it will be. So.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Swain.
I don't know if we'll probably have more discussion of this, but I would have to say that, I think that we're in a very difficult situation. I know it pains me to see our employees take on unplanned for expenses and going against basically our promises for healthcare. I don't see any way out of this corner that we're in at the moment. If we don't comply with it, we then put the county at risk of litigation from its citizens and possible problems with the state. Is law put in place by our Michigan legislation. That said, I'll definitely be pushing for rectifying compensation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else?
Okay, hearing no further, sorry.
I just wanted to speak to the fact that certainly none of the people at this table will ever let this happen again. But I do want to assure you that there are two processes in place now to ensure that regardless of who sits at this table, this will not be missed in the future. The PA 152 resolution is going to be part of the annual budget packet going forward and also has been incorporated into the annual payroll process. I just wanted to assure you of that going forward.
Thank you. So it's on a couple of different automatic reminders. I would just add that I'm going to support this resolution. It's really regrettable that and the employees have to pay for this mistake. We were strongly advised by our legal counsel against non-compliance. It's the law. We have to comply with it. Vice Chairman Horton mentioned that. we have to act within the law as a board. So they advise strongly against noncompliance or any type of circumventing. So we have to be very careful about that going forward. So I guess that's all I have on it.
Okay, we'll move that on to the next.
Final item for the committee is to consider approving the spread of $81,190.80 evenly among the 220 to 202 participants enrolled in medical benefit coverage plan A and B, not including the 10 participants enrolled in Plan C, to the 20 remaining pay periods in 2022 by increasing the current employee cost share for plans A and B by $20.10 per pay period, effective immediately. We had a rather long committee meeting. I mean, we had a lot of discussion about the ethics of noncompliance and how we were going to handle this. And it was brought up that of the three classifications, A, B, and C, the only classification are the 10 employees that took the classification was C, because they did not expect to have any kind of premium pay. And so there was only a small number. And so we thought, well, we can eliminate those and spread the rest over those two categories that didn't anticipate a premium cost for the insurance that they covered. I know we heard, why we did it. And I think my answer to because those employees chose not to pay a premium. And as we look down the future, we cannot be non-compliant. We cannot provide some kind of immediate relief. It's just something we can't do. But I know the members on that Finance and Administration Committee, and I know the hearts of the other members around this board will look for some way to rectify it in the future. But it's the best that we can do right now. We certainly apologize for getting everybody in this type of position. It was just a mistake. And I guess we're human, and we'll try to make the best of it and try to deal with the future. Other questions or other comments that you have, Nicole?
I would just say, since finance, obviously a lot of discussion about this topic, and Emma Newport, payroll and payroll benefits administrator, and I were talking about, well, there's been some new hires. That was 212 was our number at the beginning of the year. So we thought, oh, well, there's going to be some retirees too. We're not going to chase that, right? I think 212 is our number. I think we've got to pick that point in time. I think who elected healthcare at the beginning of the year, I think that's 212 souls. I think that's the number you should go with. If you take the 10 out that opted for Plan C, that's certainly your decision. But I just wanted to bring to light, we did kind of have that discussion and thought, boy, we could chase that all over. So when an employee is lucky enough to retire, they'll stop paying their extra $20.10 per pay, if that's what it is. As new hires come on, they do have a 30-day period without the insurance, and then they start paying their monthly premiums. Whenever they come on, they would start paying the extra. And I think we could chase that math all day. So I do want to just say we did discuss that, but I do think it's best just to stay with those original numbers of who elected insurance at the beginning of the year.
Any questions, comments?
So you're suggesting that we add the 10 back in?
That's always been my recommendation, Commissioner, to spread it out among all 212 souls that elected insurance. I'm of this opinion, and although we can't circumvent the law and make up for that immediately, or do something that would allow this not to happen, I do know if there is something granted to the employees in the future, that would have to be done uniformly. We couldn't say everyone but people who took Plan C,
It'll have to be done uniformly for everyone, including those who didn't choose healthcare.
including the opt-outs. Yes,
Because otherwise, we're just circumventing.
you got it, sir.
So the subcommittee comes forward with, don't have a problem. There are no good decisions with the 10 out. I assume that if we were to put in the 10, we need to have a different motion moving forward tonight. Would that be prepared if
Yes, I think yes, we could prepare that.
we move to put that tonight when this is presented in our work session?
You can amend the motion at the beginning, when you approve your agenda, you could make an amendment to this motion. You could make an amendment to the motion at the point where you move it, you can, in the night meeting, you could move the motion and make the amendment as you're saying it, or at the adoption of the agenda. I think either way, you're able to change that motion. And just for folks who didn't see finance or who don't have that page in front of them, and I have lots of copies if you want to see, what we talked about in finance, it's $19.15 is what it would come out per pay if you added the 10 people back in.
So that would have the effect of reducing the cost to the others of 95 cents.
$20, $380.
It increases the cost to,
Right, so it's $380 a
$19.50
year
for
for
those
everyone
10.
instead of 400
but it only results in a savings to everyone else of 95 cents
per pay. period.
Yes.
Per pay period.
per pay period. Yes.
Commissioner Jazinski, if I can jump in.
Please.
Just to discuss what we talked about in committee, this is as far as putting Group C back in. This is an unfortunate situation. This is something we as a board had talked about. And also in committee, we discussed, and there's no easy answer for this. There's not like this is going to be the solution, because the solution always involves taking money from the employees. And that's not a solution. That's just, I guess it is a solution, but it's not a positive solution, I guess. My thought in regards to why this came in front of the board is because when somebody was choosing Plan C back last year, when they had to make their determination, they chose to take a higher deductible because for multiple reasons, people do that. One, their spouse, significant other has a insurance plan at their work, and they're taking it basically as a secondary or backup. Another is that the person does not anticipate becoming ill, not using their health plan. So why should they pick up a cost involved? And so I guess my thought would be, if we are going to charge them, the Group Plan C folks, and remove the 95 cents, the option A and B, save them an extra 95 cents per pay period. That do we off? Well, we can't do that now, but is there a way to, well, there probably isn't, because they're probably blocked out in regards to offering people who are in Plan C the ability to go to Plan B or A, or is that too late in the year to do that? And this would not qualify as a qualifying event, probably. I know losing health care of a spouse and changing of the circumstances, like a new addition to the family or some things like that. I get that. So again, there's no easy solution. So that's why I think when we had our committee, we discussed, okay, why would Plan C people, and would it be fair to Plan C folks, 10 of them that chose that, to incur a payment when they could have made, well, if I'm paying $20, I might as well pay the little extra and bump up my health care. Again, going back in time, again, no easy answer. I think it's unfair to everyone. So whatever the board decides, I guess, as far as I'm not for anything on this, but if the board decides to go all the way across, I get it. I understand it. And I guess one of my other concerns, and you mentioned this, Nicole, is so let's say 3 months from now, we have people, the numbers change, and will people have to possibly pay more than the $19 or $20? So that's locked in stone.
I believe this will lock it in stone.
Okay. Because the cap numbers don't move through the year. It's not a fluctuating number, it's a set number.
It is a set number.
Okay. All right. So that's my only statement. I mean, there's no easy answer to this. There's no right or wrong answer, whatever this board decides. I think this is the time for discussion. I'm not necessarily in favor of making Plan C folks pay $19 and change when the difference to the 202 or whatever number is 95 cents. But if that's my whole thought on it, and the reason that they chose not to pay anything. So that's again, it's no easy answer to it. And if I wasn't going to support the change to C, it's not because I don't support having to do something. It's just that I don't think that's fair to Plan C people. So that's what I have on that.
Any other comments, questions? We'll move this forward then to tonight's meeting.
Point of order, then, what are we moving forward then? Are we moving to the change to the Plan A, B, and C?
I think we're moving forward the language as it currently exists in our
Yeah, and then it'd
work
be amended. if
agenda.
There'd be a motion to amend, and that would either pass or not pass.
Okay, yeah, fine with that.
Very good. Does that complete the work of the Finance and Administration Committee, John?
Mr. Chairman, that completes the work of the Finance Administration Committee.
Thank you. And that brings us to, we have no Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee business. Brings us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving the Memorial Forest Recreation Area Lease Agreement between Mount Schools and Isabella County for a 3-year period effective April 5th, 2022, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Director of Parks and Recs, Sue Buffmeyer, here to provide our background on this. Thank you, Sue.
This staff report addresses the Memorial School Forest Recreation Area at Deerfield Park. It's a renewal of our lease agreement that we've had. We've had with the school since 2011. We used to just have a management plan, and then in 2011, we decided to put it into an agreement form. As in my report, this includes the park acreage of 74 plus or minus acres that is part of the school's property, but we call it Deerfield property. You see in the attached map what that entails. Park map, you know, it's the southern portion of the on the colorful map, the southern portion, southwest portion of Deerfield. So this is having the attached agreement that will start it or continue it from April 5th of this year to April 5th, 2025. The agreement is already signed by the superintendent of schools, Jennifer Vergleger. Saying that right? But the financial impact is we budget about $33,500 for just the maintenance of that property. And as you guys keep hearing about the erosion prevention project that's out at Deerfield, that I hope I have for you at the next meeting, but part of that does include some improvements out at questions, but it's the exact same agreement we've had with just the change in
that number for maintenance, Sue Ann, is for the entire park, right?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Jelzinski.
Just have a comment. I know we have a lease agreement. I think it's annual with the Fisher Annex. We have this 3-year agreement with the school district for the Memorial Forest. Is the Scout property still on the east side of the park? Have you ever looked at engaging the scouting organization to see if there's some kind of agreement that we can have to incorporate that in the park on some kind of a, when it is, I think it's important too, because if we ever lose access to the Fisher Annex and that covered bridge, the scout property is the only way we have vehicle access to, from the east to the interior of the park. So just a comment.
When I first came here, that when I spoke with them, they weren't interested in, not in a bad way, but just, they're under the Boy Scouts. They, I know, are not going to sell that property, is my understanding, and their master plan, but I will definitely check with them. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments on this? Seeing and hearing none, this will be on our agenda this evening.
Number 2, consider approving the 10% retention pay for county parks and recreation seasonal employees and who qualify when they maintain employment from April through Labor Day 2022, and authorize board chair to sign the budget amendment to increase park and recreation budget to reflect seasonal staff retention pay.
So as I've noted in this report, and I noticed in our last report for the creation of up to 5 year-round part-time positions, we are definitely faced with challenges in properly staffing our parks. With the wage study, that was the first time that we've ever been on the wage scale with our seasonal and some of our part-time people that work for the parks, and we're grateful for that. But unfortunately, by the time that was in place, as you know, many things happened and minimum wage keeps going up, and all of a sudden you can get $15 at a big box store, or to work, and nothing wrong with that. But we're definitely in competition with those types of jobs. We were short-handed, depending on the time, 6 to 10, maybe over 10 jobs last year. So this is a method that we are increasing a merit adherence allowance that we've had. Jerry, I don't know, was it even long before you were there? Or did you? You did, okay. So it started in 1960, was it? I'm just kidding. Right?
I have enough gray hair.
Probably early 90s. And it's been a great thing. I mean, it's really, I'm sorry, Jerry. I apologize. I was just kidding. We're friends. But that has been a great motivator and incentive for people to stay, but then for other people, it doesn't really matter, So, and I marked down, somebody that's working 40 hours during the season, 25 cents gives them about $150 plus or minus. I was talking to one of our neighbors over in Mecosta, and he instigated, Jeff Abel is the director over there, and he did put in this, they have a bigger problem than challenge, I'm going to say that. They have the water company out there that's paying starting wages, I think around $20 an hour. So he instigated this last year, this 10%, and that's what I would like to make our merit increase up to 10%. Now, it's only for people that complete the season and that work for us for the out at the parks. But he has found that was a very big motivator. And as I put in here, $750 to $800. So it's a pretty big incentive, especially for semi-retired people, young people, people that don't quite want to work all the time, but in the parks they like to, and have them stay. We've already lost people. I mentioned that at committee. We had about 5 applicants, and who just said we just can't. They went someplace else right away, and one was not really qualified, and the other 2 were hired. But we're faced with that, so I'm just asking that we can put that in place. This was a budget amendment that Melissa did for us, and to cover this cost in our, as you see in the financial section of this, would be about $25,000. So the amendment would be from our, I'm sorry, I just want to get it right, the unreserved fund balance. And these are funds that we have plenty in that account, which is a balance over 800,000. I do want to let the board know, I know, hopefully this, I mean, if you have any questions, please let me know. But when we got the, went before the voters, presented to all the townships and many meetings about the millage for the parks, that was one main thing that I did promote and say that, we really needed to be able to attract more staff at that time. And we have now, with the millage, we have doubled, further our budget and the projects that we're doing, and park revenues have been banner year. We had a banner year 3 years ago. And then guess what? We had another banner year last year and another banner year. I mean, people are using the park. So it's just something that for us to, give the staff that is working, some support. I think this would be a really good step towards that.
Go ahead.
I think it's a great idea to increase it from the 25 cents that I started long ago, because that 25 cents doesn't mean much anymore. But back then, my experience with the county park is if you provide some retention pay, you may lose the employee early on in the season, but once they have several $100s to lose, they're not as likely to move on. And I watched the information on employee changes that we get, and I felt really sorry for you. I'm glad I wasn't Parks and Recreation Director of Isabella County anymore, because you had a revolving door with a lot of people. And once you get in the later part of the season, it just makes it difficult, because it's hard to train somebody to cover that short of a period. So I totally support this, and it's a great idea.
This is one that just gives us another tool to try to retain these people. And with Isabella County and all the parks, I mean, this is just a shame. And they do an excellent job as far as maintaining the park.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm just looking at this area starting wages. I know we just 2 years ago, we implemented a wage and job classification study. I know you touched on it maybe a little bit, but you go up and down Mission, and you go up and down Pickard, and you go around the areas, and you see starting salaries at certain fast food restaurants at 14, 15 an hour. And a lot of those people are competing with some of these employees. In looking at our starting rate, if you look at the counties that encompass and also with the city, but if you look at the counties that totally encompass Isabella County, our starting wages are lower, some significantly lower, up towards of $2.5 an hour. We can't really compare with Midland rate, but if you look at, we're still lower other than Gratiot County. Do you think we need to adjust our starting wage for? Do you think that's something this board needs to look at? I get the retention part, but it's a competitive, even on the scale that you're talking about. We need staff, as Commissioner Hutchinson said. The parks are a reason people want to live in Isabella County and visit Isabella County. And if we can't, the last thing you want to do is have a not open because of health sign. I don't think that's the case. But it very well could be. It's an unknown, especially coming up into the season we're going to be coming up to now. So do you think this board needs to look at in the near future, adjusting that starting wage?
Definitely.
Because
there's another piece of this, and this is approved. We're doing some things to try to adjust, or that up to 5 people to be year-round part-time. One position I will be back because we have an employee that's a 6 to 8 year that said, you know what, I might be interested in that. We can make it competitive, but for this person and the way that the wage, I don't know if you, like our salary or hourly go from a gate 1, gate 2, gate 3. So a gate 1 is 8.2 is if that person helps with like training and has some experience with like a reservation system. And then 3 is if they have extensive experience. That was something with the wage study that I guess I wanted to do, because to do everybody in at one wage, doesn't work very well when we get maybe a person that's got mechanical skills that can be really helpful to our equipment repair and preventive maintenance. And then we have somebody that's just in college that loves to work outdoors. They're great, but they have very limited experience. So that really has helped to be able to put people in the right categories, or so they're not looking at somebody that they're making the exact same rate as somebody that doesn't have the experience, which I think is just reflective of the job. And before that, we were on the wage study, we had the board approved in 2000 to have a range. And then we had a little checklist of if that person moved up the range a little bit, because we weren't even on the wage scale. I mean, our staff was making less than, other people. So yes, I'll be back again. I mean, the wage study was great, but it's a little, it's been quite outdated this last year, and nothing, who knew this was going to happen, with, minimum wage kept going up, which we knew that was happening, but who knew the rest was happening. So I will be back.
Thank you. Bill Lozinski's probably looking forward to your visit too, so we'll be ready for you next time.
Any more comments or questions? Or hearing none, this will be on our agenda tonight.
Thank you, Sue Ann.
Thank you, Sue Ann. That completes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us down to Intergovernmental Affairs. Commissioner Marino, do you have anything?
Yes. We met last, the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee met Monday, March the 7th. It was on Zoom at 1. The attendees were our Administrator Controller Frost, Amy Persbacher, the Mayor of Mount Pleasant, Brian Milkey, the Supervisor of Union Township, Eric Rodriguez, the Public Relations Manager of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, our Chair, Tobin Hope, Mark Schoolin Dreyer, Manager of Union Township, myself, Aaron DeSense, who's the new City Manager of the City of Mount Pleasant, and Lisa Cody. It was well attended, and we had met for a while. There was a lot of stuff that we discussed. The first one was the exciting new community sustainability group, and Professor Dr. Gaskell Demir, who's a professor of engineering and technology at CMU, along with the rest of the people in the committee, are tasked with finding ways for business to save costs on raw materials, and they're seeking a grant from Eagle for this purpose. And it was very exciting. They've been organizing. I believe the grant has to be turned in April. The professor is a very exciting person and very inspiring. They're also working with a statewide group and also the Citizens Climate Lobby. And I'm real excited about that. And it's kind of what Nicole spoke about, how a really good collaboration of people can do really worthwhile things. Okay, that's what I have about that. We'll keep our ears open to see if the grant is obtained. I did find out that from looking at an email that Brian sent me, Brian Milkey, that the professor did say that this grant wouldn't be able to help recycling. It's like about water and sewage and all that sort of thing, possibly having energy produced at sewage plants and so forth. So we'll look forward to that in the future. Also, the next item would be the Aquatic Center update, another exciting project that we have going. And the players in this are the City of Mount Pleasant, the County of Union Township, and the Mount Pleasant School District. It's called the Mid-Michigan Aquatic Authority. It's incorporated. They meet the second Monday of each month at the Union Township Hall. Some of the people involved are John Zhang, the chair, Allison Chiodini, Lisa Diaz from the schools, Stan Shingles, people know him from the university, and Nolan Camus, social media, Mark Stansberry, which is real important. He's a physical therapy guy, which has a pool type of pools. Also, Michael Nan is helping with social media. It's a 7-member board, and they're IDing local election cycles for the purpose of having a millage. And the geographic footprint of the millage will be this Mount Pleasant School District. Let me see. And so I was also informed that the entities put some money in the organization so they could get running, like 10,000 from Union Township, 10,000 from the city. I'm not sure about the school district. Are you Nicole? Okay. And like I said, 7-member board. They're that was for the startup costs. They also need fundraising, and so they're investigating the millage and fee structure. They're limited to only 1 mill. I don't know. So they're investigating these things, and they need to have liability insurance. And the board is actively looking for sites at this time for the pools. I guess it would be pools. Okay, that was number 2 on the agenda. The next one was the Icso and Correctional Facility Update. Which I see.
Isabella County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, okay, great. And so that's going to be a 40-year commitment, correct? And it's with bonding, and Nicole, our administrator controller, mentioned the USDA agriculture process. It's in Washington, D.C. at this time, right? Where lots of things hinge on that. And $41.5 million. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a spreadsheet of the wind farm revenues to take into consideration. The pension status is needed to be considered as well. And so we can question what our budget can absorb. And you mentioned lost revenue, possibly funding that we got from ARP, I believe. The project was bid out to Clark Construction Friday, March 4th, correct?
Actually, it's held up till March 11th.
Oh, March 11th. And it shouldn't be a redesign. There will have to be some tweaking, possibly. Okay. And our first full year of revenues on the wind farm. You said some townships hadn't been turned in the numbers yet, or how's that going right now?
As an update for that, equalization is still finalizing the numbers and looking over the numbers that they did ultimately get from the township. While we review these things, one turbine was missing. From the reported values. So before those numbers are finalized, they're just going to fold it out one more time.
Okay. Let me see. And so the shovels in the ground, didn't you say next spring of 2023? Okay, at this time. Okay. And okay. The next part is the MRF, Material Recovery Facility update. That was put in the 90s, and like was mentioned, the recycling was different then. And as things have gone by, that's not really working anymore. Possibly, and it's not possibly, but it's a fact that single stream is cheaper and more accepted than what we have now. So the next step is a feasibility study, retool, maybe over to single stream, and that would take a extensive retooling and a multi-million-dollar price tag, I'm sure. So the city and county, it's a joint venture. And didn't you say the county's cost? We have a 450,000 on that
Current budget, yes.
a year. Okay, and I do know it's an enterprise account, right? But it's not too much coming in these days as it had been before. Okay, let's see. That's about all I had on that. And then the committee went around the table talking about how the operations were doing in light of COVID-19. And they all mentioned that there was a kind of upswing after the beginning of the year, but now due to the lower numbers of cases and so forth, the tribe, Union Township, the city and the county all have relaxed the masking requirements and that sort of thing. Although continuing to monitor what's happening with the health department and the cases. So that was kind of good news. But okay, no mask, no signs on the door. Okay, city has removed, maintained social distancing. Tribe lifted employee mask requirements. And they're going on NIMKI clinic input. Okay, let's see. Oh, we mentioned that we looked at our emergency order. Okay, and we had a suggestion from Brian Milkey that we investigate working together on how we are spending the ARP funds. And we also agreed that the leadership luncheon needs to come back. That was a function, and maybe some of you here went to it. It was at the not Mountain Town, but that one behind there, the restaurant. It was a city, Union Township, university, and the county all meeting together for luncheons.
Travel too.
Yeah, tribal too. So that's going to be coming back. There's going to be some planning on that. And also we'll continue to meet probably in 3 months' time, I believe. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I really had to take notes.
It's quite a lengthy agenda. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I always look forward to those meetings. I think that collaboration with the township and Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe and the city are very, very important. Thank you. And that brings us to item E. We have no administrative controller issues. Unfinished business, we have none. That brings us down to new business. And we have several 2% grant requests. Item A says consider the following Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan Spring 2022 semi-annual 2% requests reviewed and assessed by the Board of Commissioners standing committees. And the requests came through the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee and the Human Resources and Public Works Committee. I'll have you gentlemen read those requests and then introduce the department head that's going to speak to that. So we'll start with that first one. Commissioner Engler, do you want to do that?
Well, Commissioner Swaney do that, and I would like to say that we did meet last time, so we are doing some of our business. So yeah, Commissioner Swaney will handle this.
All right, the first 2% request is a medium, medium project priority from the 911 Central Dispatch and Emergency Management Director, Mark Griffiths. It's for remote communications for emergency management. It's a mobile network that would go on site and follow. Describe that for us. Here we go.
Great job. It's basically a briefcase size, ruggedized case in plastic. And what it does is allow us to have remote Wi-Fi internet and further out areas where maybe we'll allow larger machines that we don't have take communications or any of that as far as that goes. The request is based off of, if you remember, we did a security exercise just a little while back. We went inside a metal building and tried to hamper communications and figure out how a group about as big as what we have here today, plus your audience, could all get on the internet and all come back against a exercise scenario, stream video. And we don't have that capability, and this would actually help to fill a gap.
And in the subcommittee, we, my questions were, how does this improve upon everyone's got cellular as well? And this unit targets the cellular towers, and we'll pull it in where, say, our officers or our command cars are not able to do that, and then provide them with that on site. Are there any questions about? Oh, hearing none, we'll move this forward to tonight. And then on a high priority from 911 Central Dispatch and Emergency Management, we have a panic button school safety project, which is not the red button on the wall type project. I'll let Director explain this.
Software application that complements our mass notification system that we have for the county. Expanding some coordination with the talked about it, basically describing the grant covers putting K through 12 environment for the staff of each building in our county proper, the ability to pilot this 3-year project. And if they have situations that might not be where they would call 911, but they definitely want their staff to come together and address something in the school. Maybe it's a student who's having an issue, but not to the level of call. That's the problem. It also has the ability for passing the call on ambulance related, fire related, or active maintenance related fire related. The meetings have been several with the school safety alliance. The law enforcement officers are working very well together with all the schools. 52% correctly when I checked the boxes. It's been a long time since we went there for the stakeholders part, but it's not every single school in the county. The stakeholder box is actually the plan for every school. It's a 3-year project. I do want to draw attention to, because a long time ago we started setting up Chippewa Tribe funded an emergency school radio project. And that school project was funded for a period of time, about 10 years. And that put emergency communications equipment. It's basically at the front desk of every school. That equipment is still in play today. It still has its use. We still test it monthly with the schools, and we appreciate all their cooperative. They also are helping maintain the school side equipment while 911 is maintaining the radio frequency transmission receiving equipment as far as that goes. So there's an example of a perfect project like this that after pending period, the school decided to keep them working, and we decided to keep them working. They continue to help school. I'm hoping this project turns out the same. It's a 3-year project that they have to work out. And, we'll lay out their
Thank you. Are there any questions for this request? Hearing none, we'll move this forward. Thank you.
Next couple of requests came through Human Resources and Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our item is Central Michigan District Health Department requesting $150,000 for mobile medical unit outfitting, and the director, the health officer, Steve All is here. explain this. Thank you, Steve.
Nice to actually talk about something other than COVID. So I know this has been a long meeting, so I'll be really quick. Basically, this request is, and I just talk about COVID. No, I'm going to talk about COVID. So last year, with some of the COVID funding, the health department did get a couple of vans, mobile units. And one of the things that we would like to do, and what this request is for, is to, in essence, fund one of these cargo vans to actually make it a mobile medical unit. So one of the issues that we tend to see is, you do community health needs assessments, and one of the things that always pops up on that is transportation being a barrier. Obviously, in some of our rural areas, this would allow us to, bring our services out to the community. So if we actually make this a mobile medical unit, we could do services, immunizations, different types of testing, family planning, Hvac certifications, just a whole myriad of services that we could actually bring out in the community instead of having to rely on people somehow getting to us and address those barriers. So that is, in a nutshell, what the request is for.
Questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay, next item. Requesting $522,340 for the program and service.
So the request before you, this will be our request that we will use for fiscal year 22. It was a request from the San Antonio Indian Tribe years ago that the Commission on Aging submit the same requests in the spring and the fall each year, and then those allocations then are split through the year and then used through the fiscal year. So our request, it supports all the programs and services across the Commission on Aging. So this is a collaboration of all of the managers. There's nothing from 2% that goes to administration.
I'll just comment that I don't have the numbers right now, but I know that the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe has been a huge contributor to our Commission on Aging over the last several years.
Since 1995, we've received over $9.4 million at the Commission on Aging. So we've been extremely fortunate from their generosity. Mhm. Thank you.
One came through.
I'll take, yes, and I will take that. I don't think we have anybody here from HATS, but it's a pretty straight up request. They need 34 beds for the dogs. So the beds are getting pretty beat up, and as you know, that's, a nice, comfortable, dry dog is a happy dog. So
Or you couldn't be
Look at
more
this,
true.
yes.
You had asked in committee, what did a Corunda dog bed look like? And so I did want to share that with you all.
That looks like the bed in my deer blind.
Clearly looking for his forever home there. Yes.
anyway, like I said, the old ones are getting pretty rough shape. So we've always supported the HATS program between the spraying programs. And so, like I said, it's pretty straight up. So I guess if there isn't any questions.
Just say that, like you said, a happy dog is an adoptable dog, right?
Yes,
So
yes. It is.
that's what we're doing, what we want.
So any more questions? Nope.
Okay, very good. The next one, the next three actually came through Human Resources and Public Works.
Yeah.
There was no one from the district, conservation district, that was able to join us tonight. So I can jump in to help explain these, and I'm certain that Commissioner Engler can as well.
Isabella Conservation District requesting $52,300 for the tire recycling program. It's a program that's been testified to. It helps with the really tiny.
I think it's been in, I'm not sure, but I think the first one we did was in 2012, but I'm not sure if it was or not, but driving around before the program and you think every year we have 2 of them a year and, the supply is going to get down, but it doesn't. But it seems like we try to load up as many trucks as we can and it's from 8 to 12, but a lot of times we have to shut down a little bit early because the trucks are all full. And if anybody ever wants to volunteer to throw those dirty tires up into the truck, we're always looking for help to do that. So, but they do hazard. A lot of time they end up in a ditch and they get full of water and breeding ground for mosquitoes. So it's been a program that's been well accepted. So.
Next on our list was Isabella Conservation District requesting $107,000 for the household hazardous waste clean sweep program. And this kind of goes on back of that. And it's good for our environment as far as getting rid of some of these. All welcome. This allows you to just take care of a lot of issues and take care of the environment. Otherwise, where would all this go?
Yeah, we have some numbers on that too. In the committee, recycled 361,000 pounds of hazardous waste, 64,000 pounds of pesticides. So it's really doing a really good thing for our health in this area.
As I told you before, we still had money left over from the last grant, but we could not find a company. Well, we've been working. We did find another company to oversee it. And this morning, we just got the date. So October 22nd will be a hazardous waste. So like I said, we had to shop around because the company didn't have enough employees to put us on it. So we did find one. So October 22nd, there will be hazardous waste at the Isabella County Fairgrounds from 8 to 12. So.
Okay. Also, you have the material recovery facility requesting $75,000 for the recycling program. Is Jake here? Yeah, great. Thank you.
That Sue-Ann distracted me. Material recovery facility through the years has been as fortunate as the commission have. I don't have an exact number with me as far as the money that has been contributed by the Saginaw Chippewa Tribe on 2% fund requests. This particular request is for asphalt repair within the facility. I made mention to Nicole, who frowned upon my comment that the fact that my facility was looking like the parking lot in the county building, but it is getting bad. We're really starting to see some areas. We have $56,000 right now, setting in 2% funding. Part of the reason that I have not moved forward with that request was starting April, the last week of this month, we've got to prep to have the scale in the facility replaced, which was that was a 2% request as well. That's already been approved and everything through the board. That takes first, carrying the scale out of the facility the first week of April. They have to do some modifications to that area. And when the modifications are done and a new scale is in place, at that point, I'd like to be able to do more than just the few areas that we had set aside 2% additional on top of that to be able to finish doing some recap on the whole facility or most all of the facility.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah. During the committee, we talked quite a bit about this, and the challenges is the footprint in there that is, was built for a different decade. So hopefully with technology, we won't have to move, but maybe just switching some things around and some flows, some throughputs, we can improve the facilities a lot. But it's going to be a challenging, so I think we really do need a study to understand what we can and cannot do, so.
And to touch on that, Commissioner, I and Chris Whitmer are working on trying to get that out. The intent is to have that feasibility study released by the end of this month. Or RFP, yes, excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you. The last one went through criminal justice and county affairs.
Yes, and we have our sheriff here to discuss it, and he wants a dog. Probably a bed too, right? So
Sure, the last two sheriffs had canines. This one will not be the canine operator if we were successful in the grant opportunities. So it'd be somebody else in my staff. So this has been a topic we've had, over the years. Canines are pretty valuable on lots of different platforms, especially for sheriff's offices with jails and narcotics. We've had some issues lately. We've found some narcotics in the jail and stuff. So, to do those sweeps in the jail, it's pretty important to have those canines. But the startup cost is pretty expensive, as you can see. And they've reached out to some former and current canines I know and can trust, and to give me a good list of really what the startup is. I spoke with MMRMA on how to reduce ongoing costs, which is pretty minimal, but we wanted to make sure we had those bases covered as well. This kind of came about from a conduit from the tribal nation. There was some discussion out there about them interested in maybe sponsoring another canine. So this is kind of where this came from. They're still willing to entertain that and review that. I can tell you over the weekend, we had an armed robbery. Canine right there with us. Within a few minutes, we were able to track the suspect down and place him in custody. In fact, it happened so fast, we weren't even able to get out an alert to the community that there was an issue. Try to do, when there's things like that, which reduced obviously stress and living in that area. So in that case, it worked great. It tracked right to the back door of the suspect. So those are the kind of things we're looking at. This dog would be a narcotics, track type dog. We do missing people, whether they're a suspect or an elderly or someone that's injured quite frequently. Having our own would be a real positive thing to have as well. The goal here is to, the tribe has a couple of canine dogs and MSP has a canine dog, but they have multiple counties. But the plan would be to obviously try to saturate as much as possible, having a canine on scene where they can do some of those high risk entries, or they can do those canine narcotic sweeps, or those tracks like that. Reduces over time when we have dogs on that we can use that are on duty versus calling people in. So with that being said, that's really all I have as far as canine, and we'll see what they do.
I have a deep respect for the canine unit. When Barry DeLue was sheriff, he had lived in the trailer out of Deerfield, and I went out there and I asked him a question, and we talked a little bit. And he says, "Okay, go. You have 15 minutes head start." So I went into the park, and that darn dog, Trace, kept barking behind me, and I'm thinking, I don't know where Barry is. This dog's going to rip me apart. So I climbed the tree and survived that experience. But I was really impressed with the capabilities of that canine unit he had.
They are highly trained. There's a couple of different places that train them, and one's pretty local here in the Clear County area. They're highly trained, and it's nice because the canine units in this area all train together as well. So lots of times, when we get something big going on where we need to supplement, the dog gets tired, the second dog is right there ready to go, but they train often, so the dogs are comfortable being around each other and stuff. So it is really a team effort. It would be a good asset to the sheriff's office and the county and community. So.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll consider those tonight in tonight's motion, and we will, Ms. Frost has a sheet where we will rank those requests between meetings and get those back prior to the regular session. And with that brings us back to general public comments. General public comments.
basically, I just want to talk about a little bit about the history. I've been here for over 28 years. And as I look out in the audience, there are a lot of people that have been here since I started or started right after I did. I think Isabella County has been extremely fortunate in the amount of people that have either spent their whole careers here or the majority of their career here. I mean, that is an awesome asset to this county. And those people didn't just work for Isabella County, they were out in the community and they did other things. They cared about the community. I just want to make a point, something that I know has bothered quite a few people of us who have been here for a long time. Several years ago, before the current administration and the administration before that, we found ourselves in a different position in Isabella County. We had not had raises in numerous years. We hadn't had COLAs. We were self-funded for insurance. I was taking the family plan because I had kids. I was paying well over $200 a pay for my insurance, as were a lot of others. We ended up at the end of the year and we had overpaid our premiums. Because we were self-funded, we had overpaid that amount. So what happened was the commissioners made the decision to give us a stipend, and this happened twice. Once, I believe it was $1,200. Kathleen, correct me if I was wrong. The other time there was an $800 one. So what they did was they gave us the stipend. And so we had plans A, B, and C. Plan C had not paid any money in. Plan B and Plan A had overpaid. So the amount of that was divided up amongst all of the employees. So if you hadn't paid any money, you still got the stipend. So there was a lot of bad feelings. It was horrific for the morale of the employees because employees who had paid a lot of money in, extra money, felt like they were paying those employees that hadn't paid in for any insurance. And so I think that's why this is kind of a hot topic for a lot of those people. And although we do have a lot of people who really seriously have to budget for what they're doing, if you want to look at that whole scenario, it doesn't matter whether you budgeted for zero or you budgeted for my plan. I have the two-person plan, so I pay $78.11. Doesn't matter whether that is increased by 20-some dollars. If you're at the zero, it's an increase in what you expected to pay. It changes your budget. It doesn't matter. There are a lot of people, I have people in my office that have different plans. They've all said they would have elected a different plan had we known. We didn't know, so I don't think we can exclude those who are in Plan A and Plan B from having made a different decision had they had the choice of what we're going to be paying now. The other thing I would like to say is this is not the worst mistake or the worst thing that has happened to the employees in Isabella County. Yes, it's a mistake. Mistakes happen all the time. I think it's how we handled it and move forward. We've already made plans to change it so it doesn't happen again. I know in my office, that's what I'm looking for, is if a mistake's made, we want to make sure that that same mistake again. And I think you guys have a good plan. And I think if we move forward, if we make a good decision, the employees are going to feel that trust and that value. And they are, you know, the employees are our value. That is where the value is for this county.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else for general public comments?
wanted to say a lot what Karen said, everyone makes mistakes. I feel like I'm in a 12-step program. My name is Sue Ann and I'm one of the 10. I just want to say, I think everyone should be. I feel really odd. I didn't know a lot about your restrictions, so I didn't quite understand I heard what was going to happen, and I didn't understand the why some didn't, like the 10 weren't going to pay. I'm not speaking for anybody else. But now that I understand your hands are tied to paying back or doing whatever, I just think it makes sense to keep everybody in the group. So with that, that's all I have to say. Kathleen, do you want to?
Anyone else? Do we have any callers on the line?
We have one that's been online, but their hands are not raised.
And if they would like to speak, this would be the time to dial *9. And I don't see a hand coming up, so we will move on from general public comment to announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? Commissioner Jelzinski.
I respectfully request, under the bylaws, a county board member can ask that their statement be placed verbatim in the minutes. And since this is my last hurrah on this, I'm going to not address this issue in the past. I'd like to have that done. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Commissioner Angler.
Just one last announcement to the tree sale is still going on yet, and we have a lot of fruit trees. So, price of food's going up. You might want to buy some trees to supplement, even though it might take a couple of years. So.
Oh, that wasn't included. I'm kidding.
No, I don't have one. Anyways, I just wanted to make the announcement that it'll go on for about another 10 days. So.
Get your trees while you still can. Any other announcements? Yes.
Board of Commissioners, that April 19th at 4 p.m. is the last day to file for the August primary. April 19th, 4 p.m. And we have all the packets at our office.
Okay. I have a couple of announcements. I'll try to make them quick. As you know, I sit on the Community Mental Health for Central Michigan Board. The executive director has decided to retire after 30 years with that agency and 7 years as the executive director. As a board, we're already busy forming a committee to find a replacement for John. He will be greatly missed. Terrific guy for those of you that know him. The member that we just appointed, Jim Hatton for Isabella County, is also on that committee. Community Mental Health for Central Michigan is a 6-county agency with about $120 million budget that's mostly Medicaid dollars. It's run by a board of county commissioners from each of the 6 counties and community members that are appointed by those 6 county commissioners. So I guess my point is that the Senate bills 597 and 598, the Shirkey bills that have passed out of committee and are expected to come to a vote here sometime. I think they're waiting to make sure they have enough votes. Will take away that kind of local control and hand it to insurance companies right now it's run by us. It's run by the county commissioners and the people that we appoint. That'll change if those bills pass. So contact your senators. The other thing is I want to read a letter from Shepherd Police Chief Luke Sawyer to Mark Griffiths, 9/11 Director. I wanted to commend your staff for the incredible job they did during the March 2nd, 2022 Ithaca school bus crash on US 127. Their behind-the-scenes work was just as vital as the on-scene work taking place. In my opinion, it was a true example of teamwork at its finest. Supervisor Ryan Martin, dispatcher Tisha Dodd, dispatcher Eric Frost, and dispatcher Adam Seidel deserve recognition for their incredible efforts for that day. I absolutely consider them and their counterparts as first responders, and it is an honor to serve with them. Thank you for all you do, keeping us safe. Sincerely, Chief Luke Sawyer. So that was nice. And I also want to thank, I know that the Sheriff's Department provided support for that event. Other than that, Council of Governments will meet tomorrow night at 7 PM upstairs in room 320, I believe. Okay. And that,
Upstairs here.
oh, at the county building. Yeah, I was thinking we were at the county building. Room 320 of the county building, tomorrow night, Council of Governments. And that's all I have. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, then we will adjourn at 6:29 at the call of the chair. Okay.